A United Nations inquiry has determined that Israel's deliberate attacks destroying Gaza's healthcare system amounts to, quote, war crimes of will killing and mistreatment and the crime against humanity of extermination. So war crimes and crimes against humanity are on the table. Something we've always said, something that has been indisputably clear. But now another institution, another organization has said the same thing. The UN's Independent International Commission issued a statement along with the report, and it reads in part, Israeli security forces have deliberately killed, detained, and tortured medical personnel in targeted medical vehicles. It goes on to say that the Israeli attacks resulted in, quote, fuel, food, water, medicines, and medical supplies not reaching hospitals, while also drastically reducing permits for patients to leave the territory for medical treatment. Children in particular have borne the brunt of these attacks, suffering both directly and indirectly from the collapse of the health system. Now, as part of the report, and this is the part that I found most heartbreaking, the part that hurts the most as we talk about it, is this young woman you see right here. Because as part of the report, UN experts investigated the murder of this young woman. You all know her as Hind Rajab. She was a young Palestinian girl who was in a car with her entire family. She was fleeing northern Gaza, and the whole family came under Israeli fire. Now, Hind's uncle, his wife, and their 4 children were all killed. Hind was still alive and surrounded by her dead relatives. Imagine being 5, escaping unimaginable violence. Your family gets killed in front of you, and you're just standing there alive, terrified. Later, a recording of her calling for help was released, that she was pleading for somebody to help her. 2 ambulance drivers were dispatched and arrived at the scene to rescue Hind, but both paramedics were killed by the IDF. Israeli forces intentionally prevented access to the vehicle. They literally blocked the vehicle, and they continued heavy shelling in the area. 2 weeks later, after the bullet-ridden car was able to be retrieved, I hate this story, but we have to tell it. Hind, of course, was dead. We know this. We've talked about her for a while, and the protesters and the activists have named buildings after her. They marched for her, but it's absurd. Anyway, the report is going to be presented to the UN General Assembly on October 30th, and Israel, you'll be shocked to know, objects to the report. They say the claims are outrageous. The evidence is there. The truth is there. It's just a question of how people receive it, respond to it, engage it, etc. Let's move on to another story, because it is challenging, incredibly challenging to deal with these stories in any way that doesn't hit the emotions, you know. So we'll talk about it. Anyway, let's move on. In a historic and unprecedented move, the Hind Rajab Foundation has filed what it calls the largest ever complaint to ever be submitted to the International Criminal Court. The complaint names 1,000 Israeli occupation soldiers for war crimes against humanity, and genocide in Gaza. Now, according to the foundation, it includes, quote, the most comprehensive evidence gathered to date. There are over 8,000 pieces of verifiable videos, audio recordings, forensic reports, and social media posts that directly link the named soldiers to atrocities committed against Palestinian civilians. Now, some of the atrocities were live streamed by the soldiers themselves. This is, I think, the most frustrating, but in some ways helpful thing, right? Is that the arrogance of these soldiers, their commitment to mocking and sort of flaunting their indifference to Palestinian life actually works out in this case. Here's an example.
We live in an era of technology, and this has been described as the first live stream genocide in history, and I believe that to be true. They are conducting a genocide now with glee. They're setting their atrocities to music and putting them on catchy reels on TikTok. Ordinary Israelis see what their military is doing and celebrate it.
A crowd is singing, "May your village burn."
It's not just fringe elements who see this and think it's a good thing.
When a nation protects its home, it fights. And we will fight until we'll break their backbone. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true. It's an entire nation out there that is responsible.
So the live streaming of genocide that's a whole conversation for another time. But again, it speaks to the kind of indifference to Palestinian life. The complaint states that the named soldiers were all, quote, located in Gaza during the genocidal assault, and the evidence reveals their participation in violations of international law. It also provides evidence of destruction of civilian infrastructure, illegal occupation and looting, participation in the Gaza blockade, targeting civilians, use of inhumane warfare tactics, which are all violations under international law. The group released a statement that says the soldiers include, quote, high-ranking officers and commanders responsible for planning and executing military operations in Gaza. Individuals with dual citizenship, including 12 from France, 12 from the United States, 4 from Canada, 3 from the UK, 2 from the Netherlands, as well as soldiers who, quote, have been openly boasted about their war crimes on social media. This is stunning, but not shocking. It's morally atrocious, but it's not a shocker. We've seen far more egregious things in the last year than we probably could have ever imagined. But now I want to move to another story before we go. And we'll be back later because there's some updates on Diddy. There's some updates on the Gaza hospital that the IDF engaged in terms of abandoning sick and dying babies. There's a lot to cover.